Hello and welcome. In this video, you will learn how to use a 3D model that you have made in Tinkercad to prepare for 3D printing. Once you've made your model in Tinkercad, you have an STL file, a .stl file. And you can also get a .stl file from other makers on the internet. We're looking for this STL files here. I'm just going to Google and I'm going to show you. There are a lot of different sites out there that will have STL files up for you to use. So this Cults 3D is a nice place to go. They're a 3D printing community and they should have a lot of files. Mr. Winkler likes to use Yegi. Yegi is also a good place to go. My favorite place is actually Thingiverse. So we're going to go to Thingiverse right now. And here it is, Thingiverse. Thingiverse is another place where people will put free files up for others to use. I find that most of the ones on Thingiverse tend to be free. Some of the others you might have to pay a nominal fee for. And all you do is you just search for what you're looking for. I'm interested in looking up a Oloid wobbler. This is kind of a fun, solid object that rolls, but it kind of wobbles around. It's made of two perpendicular circles. So once this goes up here, you can see that there's a couple of different choices. I like this one, so I'm going to click on it, and it opens up a new page where I'll be able to see pictures of the wobbler. There's pictures of the model as well. And this particular model is printed in 2 halves with a screw that will be hidden internally. And this is actually good because I can print these flat on the bed. And the only thing that the printer might have a hard time with is that screw hole. But I think the way it's designed, it should not have an issue and we wouldn't need to use supports or anything. So that's one thing you want to think about when you're looking for files is, can I print this easily? Will it need supports? Is it going to have material that's like floating in the air that would need material underneath it to support it that you would then have to take away? That support material is actually quite hard to take away afterwards, so it's best to find a model that does not need supports. So all you would do over here is click on Download All Files, and it's going to download in your bar over here. It downloads into a zip file, and all you're going to do is open the zip file, extract all, save it. I'm just going to keep it in my downloads because I don't really care where it is. And there we are. We have the files in here, and the maker also included the pictures that he put on the internet, so you can see those pictures as well. Sometimes there's also like licensing and things. Basically, if you're using it for educational purposes, you don't have to worry about licenses. But if you are going to be marketing it or selling it, then you might have to figure that out and talk with the maker. So now I'm just going to go back to Dremel Print Cloud. So the address you're going to go to is printcloud.dremel.com. And you will have to sign up for an account, but you can use your Google account. So it's very, very easy to sign up. When you open it up, there will be a window that asks you to like attach your printer and hook it up to the internet. Just X out of that. I don't want the printer hooked up to the internet so that we don't have random things printing that aren't intended to be printed. This way, all things that need to be printed on the printer will have to be downloaded, put on a flash drive, and then physically plugged into the printer. It's just a little bit easier, and we can really modify things better that way. So we're going to upload our new files, choose a file, and I'm just going to go to that Oloid wobbler that I had before and select all of them. Now I already uploaded them, so you would normally just click open, but I already have them uploaded. They would show up here, and it would tell you when it's done downloading, and you just click save and go to my files. So here they are under my files. We have a screw, half B, and half A is in there as well, but I already did something with it. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to repair your files. So we're going to click repair on half B here. And repairing is not, I don't know that it's necessary, but I like to do it because it just kind of prepares the files for printing and make sure it's optimized. So we are using a Dremel 3D40, so we're going to keep that there. And it just moves the object to the center of the build plate, it rotates the object, and then it could auto resize it. I like to unclick that because I usually know that my object is the size I want it. If you're not sure about your object size, then I would keep it clicked. So we're just going to fix this. And it tells us it's done, and we press close. So it actually brought us to my projects now. So you're not going to find what you just did under my files, you'll find it under my projects. And you notice that there's two files here. We have our original half B file, and then this one is repaired. It's the one that we just created. So now we're going to go in and we're going to try and lay out our file. This interface works very similar to Tinkercad. So you're going to scroll in and out to zoom, and you can right click and drag to change the view. Okay. What you want to make sure is that you want flat surfaces on the bottom. So I'm actually going to rotate this piece, and I'm going to rotate it so that the bottom, or the flat piece, is on the bottom. So it's actually going to rotate 180 degrees. You can either type it in over here on the side, or you can physically move it and rotate it. I find it easier to type it in. We're also going to click on the bed to make sure it's on the bed. It already is. You just want to make sure that it's not floating in midair. That will create problems for you. Okay. Now, if you wanted to print all the pieces of this Oloid on the same at the same time, you could. You would have to go into Tinkercad, put them all, upload the STL files, all three of them, put them all in the same bed, and then export that new STL file and bring it back in. I'm not going to demonstrate that for you today, but it is possible, and that will just help you save space. Okay. Same thing goes for if you want to print multiples of something. You would go into Tinkercad, duplicate what you want to print, export that new STL file, and then bring it into Print Cloud and lay everything out. So now that we have this laid out, we're going to undo that. Now that we have this laid out the way we want it, I'm going to click Save here. And again, it creates a new file, and this says repaired, and then it has another number here. So know that the new files go on top. So now we've repaired, we've laid out, and now we're going to slice. Slicing is really the important part of Dremel Print Cloud. This is what truly prepares it for the printer and creates the file that you need. The file we need, the file format for this printer, is a G3 Drem, and this is what the slicing will do. So when you click Slice, you see that there are 3 different tabs. I'm going to recommend you stay on the Simple tab. If you've had some experience with 3D printing, or maybe you find a model online in Thingiverse, and often they'll tell you like the parameters to use on your printer, and you want to use those parameters, then you could go into the advanced. I would not use expert, it's the actual coding. So don't even worry about expert. The things you need to worry about in simple, again, we are using the 3D40, so that is default selected for us. We don't need to change that. We are using PLA. We will never use anything else other than PLA. Notice that the only options here are PLA. We have the standard. I don't think we're going to have like draft or best. We're just going to keep it standard. You can change the layer height. Layer height will change like how fast it's going to print. If you have a higher layer height, it's going to print faster. If you have a lower layer height, then it's going to take longer because you're doing more layers. Now, the lower layer height is going to be more of a smooth look. Higher layer height is going to be a little more rough. Just depends on what you care about. It's defaulted right in the middle. I have not had a problem with this middle default. I like the default. The number of perimeters is set at 2 for default. That's a pretty common perimeter number as I've been searching around on different sites. I'm not entirely sure what perimeter means, so I don't touch that one unless you know what you're doing. Infill density. This is the one that you'll probably change the most. Infill density is defaulted at 15. I would never go above 20. So what infill density is the middle of your object is never going to be completely solid. It's going to have some kind of a honeycomb or a lattice on the inside. This uses less material. It also makes it less dense, so it's a little bit lighter than it would be if it was completely solid. Infill density of 20 is like high quality. So I would say you're never going to need more than 20. 15 is good. And then the 15 is good. 10 is probably the lowest I would go. So if you're like drafting something with a student, they don't really know if it'll work, I would go with like a 10% infill density. I'm going to keep this at 10% because I don't really care how high quality this is, and we're going to keep the number of perimeters at 2. Down here we have some selections. Often if you find a design online, it'll tell you if you need rafts or supports, and this recenters the object. If you are putting the object in a particular place for a particular reason, unclick that. Like if you have more than one objects in that STL file, I would just unclick it. Just don't use it. Supports are only necessary if you know you have hanging parts. I do not need supports for this because the screw hole is actually tapered. So a tapered thing is going to be just fine. Support material is really hard to remove after you have printed it. It holds up pieces that might be overhanging, and it's helpful for that, but then you have to take it off later, and it's pretty hard to get off. Rafts are kind of similar to supports. Usually it's default unclicked. Unless a design tells you you need rafts, I would not click on the rafts. So we're going to slice and toolpath preview, and this is going to give you an idea of how the layers are going to be printed on the printer. And it shows you, this is our design. Kind of shows you that it's a little bit more rough than it was before in the original STL file. You can, show extrusion, show infill. You can just show the motion. So you can change this view here. It's really just helpful to see. You don't really need to do anything here. Once that file has been made, so this is our Dremel 3D40 file. See, it's a G3 Drem, okay? So it's ready to print. It tells me that this is going to take 1 hour and 27 minutes. That is an estimate. It is not definite. Often I find that it takes longer than the estimate. Once you have your file ready, you're going to click on the name of the file, and it downloads down at the bottom left into your downloads folder. You're going to take that file, save it onto a flash drive, and then go to the printer. In the next video, you will learn how to prepare the printer for printing and to actually print your design.